Hey guys, what's up? Companies are having these kind of weird, slow burning internal civil wars over bringing employees back to the office who are still working from home. And right now is right at 2 years that I've been full time work from home. It was early December of 2020. I moved into a role that was fully remote. And I'm just going to say we're never going back. And it's interesting to talk to people who think that we should be back into the office because what I have found personally from talking with several people like this is all of them begin from the position that when employees were in the office, they were 100% productive all the time, or at the very worst, they would sometimes go to the bathroom and then quickly sprint back to their desks to resume productivity. And I don't know if you've experienced the cubicle life in corporate America, but to think that anybody was 100% productive in a cubicle environment is just nutty. I used to have three coworkers who would pile into a cubicle together on Monday morning, and from 7 a.m. until lunchtime, about 4 hours, they would talk about football. And then Tuesday morning, those three guys would pile into the same cubicle, and from 7 a.m. to 11, they would talk about football. And so between them on Monday and Tuesday mornings, all year long, even when football was not in season, they would spend about 24 man hours at a fully burdened labor rate of about $300 per hour being billed to our customer for them to talk about football. Not very productive, but I guess it brought, a little over $7,000 a week in billable revenue into the company. So the company didn't care, but the customer would have if they had known they'd been paying $7,000 a week for those guys to talk about football. I've had coworkers who take naps in their cubicles. You cannot go into the bathroom in a corporate setting without hearing tap, 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 tap on phones from every stall. I've had coworkers who take 2 hour lunch breaks, who leave the facility for that much time, and you're there when they got there in the morning, you're there when they leave in the afternoon, so they're not making the right amount of time. They're not being fully productive to at least, this arbitrary kind of 40-hour per week standard. And so, it just doesn't exist. People get up, they go take walks, they take breaks, they go chat on their phone, they sit at their desk and they play Candy Crush. They read Wikipedia at work. And so, yeah, people get stuff done, and I don't want to make it sound like nobody is productive, but the idea that people were 100% productive in the office, and if we can just return to the office, we'll be more productive or no worse off productivity wise than we are at home, and everything will be great. And it's simply not true. And so I was never 100% productive in an office. I'm not 100% productive working from home full time, and that's just the reality. But the difference is, now that I work from home, I don't use an alarm clock. I get up at 7 a.m. And I used to use an alarm clock to get up at 5 a.m. so that I could get ready, so I could drive in, so that I could work, so I could get done, so I could drive home, so that I could start seeing my family about 5 in the evening. And now I get to get up at 7. I go get my coffee from the kitchen, and I sit down at my desk and I start answering emails. I might have a call with one of the guys on my team. I'll do that stuff while I'm still in my pajamas drinking coffee. And I'm not going to give that up. I'm not going to go back to an alarm clock and getting up at 5 a.m. so that I can get through all my work and finally get home to see my family at 5 in the evening. And, when my kids wake up, 7:15, 7:30, they come in the room and they say hi to me. They come and they sit on my lap and we talk. And, I'm not going to give that up. And my wife is a stay-at-home mom, and we homeschool our kids. So most of the time my kids are home if my wife's not taking them to a playgroup thing or a museum or whatever other activities she does with them all the time. But the result of that is most days I get to have a hot lunch at the dining room table with my entire family. And I'm not giving that up. And so if I think of my entire professional career that I worked in an office before I came home 2 years ago, the percentage of days that I had a hot lunch was maybe generously 20% over the course of all of those years. Now it's every day. And, when the kids go down for nap time, or they get done with their lessons for the day and they want to watch Pokemon on Netflix. Sometimes my wife and I lock the door and we have sex in the middle of the day. And I never had sex with anyone when I was working in an office, and I'm not going back to that. And so you have these delusional managers in the corporate world who think, well, I hate my family, I hate my marriage, I love my job and it's the only thing that defines my existence, and golly, everyone else should be the same way, and we should all be happy to get back to the office so that I can rule a kingdom of cubicles and show people how much real estate I control. And, not all of us think that way. We have different priorities. Our incentives align differently, and the incentives are not aligned for me to ever go back to an office. And, it's funny because the company I work for, you can kind of sense the slow simmering civil war where the corporate guys who are in charge of the business, they've been getting rid of office space for a couple years now. They've been breaking leases, they've been selling buildings and getting rid of it. But the people who run programs building products, they are still desperately trying to cling on to their antiquated boomer empires of cubicles that they can look out upon and rule over. And you can definitely see the friction between the corporate business guys and the program folks, where the business guys are saying, look, we're having trouble attracting people and hiring the kind of talent we need for the business, when we tell them that not only do you have to move across the country, but then you have to come into an office some number of days a week for a job that's obviously capable of being done remotely. I mean, everyone on my current program has been remote for almost 3 years now, since they sent everybody home initially in March or April, was it, of 2020. And so, some other things that I enjoy from being at home is when I need to go to the bathroom, I have the little bidet seat on my toilet in my master bathroom. My master bathroom is literally like 12 feet through that wall. And I can just use my bidet. And I know some companies are nice and they have bidets on the toilets in their corporate bathrooms, but my company doesn't. So it's kind of deficient on that part. But here at home, I've got one and it's mine. I'm the only one it squirts at. If it gets near the end of the day and it's 3, 4 in the afternoon and I'm just pounding away code on my computer, writing some software for work, and I don't have any more meetings for the rest of the day, sometimes I'll walk over to the wet bar and I'll pour a little whiskey. And I'll just sit there and I'll just have, 1 or 2 fingers of whiskey while I finish writing software until dinner's ready. And then when dinner's ready, I just walk across the house to a hot meal with my entire family. And these are things that I never enjoyed in an office. And these managers who think that we're all going to go back and that somehow we will derive purpose and pleasure and value from going back to an office, they're just nuts. They're not in touch with reality. And on top of that, just the drive time. If I had to start commuting again, I'm working at the current program I work on is at a different facility for the same company. And the round trip time would be an hour and a half every day in my car. And I don't get to count that as productive time. So that's literally an hour and a half every day that would come out of time that I get to spend with my kids. And I've had these sociopath managers who will tell me that, I don't get along with my kids. In just conversation, they'll talk about how them and their kids just don't get along together. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me. Maybe that's a surprise to them. But to them, they don't get along with their kids. So they don't value the fact that when they have to come into the office, that is time that comes out of you being with your kids. And to me, that's very important because I actually like my kids. So, it's unfortunate that companies kind of don't want to acknowledge these things. They don't want to acknowledge that you were never fully productive in an office. They don't want to acknowledge that you're going to do work in your pajamas, that you're going to take a break to have sex in the middle of the day, that you're not going to be fully productive at home, but if your customers are still getting the products they want and you're making a profit, it's probably okay. They don't want to acknowledge that people are going to sit down with a beer at their desk in the afternoon to relax. So, they can't try to address those arguments because those are not corporate safe arguments for them to address. Instead, that what they want to talk about is unmeasurable nonsensical stuff like collaboration and, those water cooler chats that you get. And, when everybody hangs up after a remote Skype call, all of the opportunities for interaction are over. But when you're in a real office together, then people can just have those chance conversations that really spark great creative energy. No, I mean, the products still get delivered. We still make a lot of money. We still make payroll. We're all getting paid. The stock prices are going up. I mean, everything's great working from home. So it's a very hard sell. And the corporate folks who want all of us to come back to the office, they're not even addressing the real issues. They're not addressing the issues of time wasted in the car, time lost with the family, all the benefits that you get from working from home. Or if you want to go to Malta for a month while your wife and your kids go out every day and see museums and do things and you join them in the evening, but during the afternoon you work from the Airbnb on your corporate laptop, they're not addressing the fact that you can't do that while you're in an office. So, we're never coming back. And there are enough companies that are really seeing the wisdom of maintaining a remote workforce, not paying for all this stupid real estate, not paying for all these awful cubicles that nobody wants to sit in and talk about football all day. And so, thankfully, I think in the long run, the number of people who are fully remote long term, let's say to 2030, it's not going to be the same as it was in 2021, but it's not going to be anywhere near like it was pre-pandemic. So I think we're going to win in the end. And I know I'd take a big pay cut if I had to. I don't need to, but if I had to stay fully remote, I'd take a big pay cut to do it, just because getting to be with my family, getting to see my kids, getting hot meals, using my own bidet, drinking at my desk, sex in the middle of the day, all these things are these perks that nobody ever offered me in an office, and I'm never going back. So let me know what you think, and I especially look forward to the folks who worked in the magical offices that were 100% productive when they were in person, and now that people are remote, they are negatively productive. So I love those stories. Bless your heart. So let me know what you think, guys. Otherwise, like, comment, share, and subscribe. Join me on Final Trade. Join the Patreon.